teach your children well. Their father's help did slowly go by, and feed them on your dreams.
Welcome. Good evening. My name is Meryl Forden, and I am the president of the East Williston Teachers Association. It's truly my honor to be able to present to you tonight, this evening. East Williston Teachers Association has partnered with the Herrick's Teachers Association and the Garden City Teachers Association to talk to you about the educational concerns that face all of us and our children today. And in East Williston in particular, two warrior moms, Christine Cozzolino and Sarah Mizrahi, are really the work behind everything that's happening here in our communities. And before I introduce them, I would just like to acknowledge Nydia Digniomini. She is the president of the Herrick's Teachers Association, and Jim Cotter, he is the vice president of Garden City, and we're very grateful for their participation. I'm going to turn this over to Christina and Sarah, who will take you through the rest of the night, and thank you to our distinguished panel. Christine and Sarah.
Welcome, my name is Christine. I'm here to introduce our panel. This is Dr. Michael Hynes, we have Maura Kilfoyle, we have Peter Osra, Jeanette Zuderman, and Bonnie Buck. So first we're going to hear from Dr. Michael Hynes. Let me tell you a little something about him. Dr. Michael Hynes is the superintendent of schools for the Patchogue-Medford School District. Prior to working in Patchogue-Medford, Dr. Hynes served as the superintendent of schools for the Shelter Rock School District, the assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction for the Plain Edge School District, elementary principal in Santa Mauritius, and middle school principal and classroom teacher at the South Country School District. Dr. Hynes is also an associate an adjunct assistant professor for Dowling College. He teaches courses in school law, curriculum and instruction, and school leadership, and has published numerous articles and podcasts on school leadership and his belief in public education. Dr. Hynes resides in Sayville with his wife and 4 children. He graduated from Bethany College in West Virginia with a bachelor's degree in psychology. He received a master's degree in elementary education, his professional diploma in school district administration, and doctorate in educational administration from Downing College. Dr. Hynes also received his educational training from New York University, Stony Brook University, Harvard University, in the areas of school leadership, school business affairs, and organizational learning. Dr. Hynes has been a shining example of what courageous and moral leadership looks like, speaking loudly on the behalf of all New York State children. Let's welcome him.
Thank you for that very kind introduction. So I just want to give everybody an update. I have 5 children now. No. Yeah. I actually probably thank my wife for that. And I actually want to thank my wife for 2 things. One is I want to say allowing me to be here tonight. And I say that not because I have to ask permission, but because everything we do together when it comes to raising our 5 children. And if you have more than 1 child, you know getting up in the morning and getting our kids out that's almost a full-time job, and then of course putting them to bed is probably 2 full-time jobs, which I'm not there for right now. And I'm very thankful to be here. I want to thank our teacher associations for sponsoring this tonight. This is just so important. It's really a privilege to be here. Over the past several years, as we all know, education has become depersonalized. And our job over the next several years is to personalize it once again. You know, the heart of education, as far as I'm concerned, has to do with the minds, the hopes and the aspirations of our students. And for those of you who are really keeping current as far as what's happening, that's really being depleted tenfold, especially over the past 3 to 4 years. So it's very difficult to serve our children. And I say serve our kids because in essence, that's what we do, we serve. We're supposed to be working with our children, certainly serving our communities. But it's very difficult to do that with this nonsense that's going on, not only in Albany, but certainly what's taking place at the State Education Department, which of course is in Albany. And then we just found out today that John King was confirmed. And I don't want to say any curse words in the church, so I will refrain from doing that right now. But as easy as it is for me to talk about all the problems, at some point we need to start talking about what some of the solutions are. And so in this madness, we got to think about what schools were designed to do many years ago. And we keep hearing this over and over again. And it's called the 3 R's. So you have reading, writing, and arithmetic, even though 2 of them have no R's in the front. So it's phonetically consistent, but it's really not an R. But what I'd like to start talking about in the very near future, meaning yesterday moving forward, are 3 different types of R's that are just so important. But in this day and age, it's very hard to do so. And that's reflection. Our students and our teachers and our school communities need to work with our children to learn how to go inward. And it's very difficult to do that in this day and age right now. And that's a life skill that will serve our children for many years to come. Relationships is also one of the R's that we need to start focusing on. Not only a child's relationship with others, but certainly a relationship with himself, and to see the relationships and the interconnectedness of what's going on all around us. And then the final R has to do with resilience. You know, however you define resilience, I look at resilience as learning from our mistakes, which isn't a bad thing, by the way, because that's how we learn the most and the quickest, and it stays with us. To be resilient moving forward, to learn from our past, and to create a future anew. Again, it's difficult to do those things right now, and as we bob and weave, and we are, it's almost like, you know, you're a boxer, you're bobbing and weaving through all these different changes for our children, and our children are enduring. And I say our children, but also our teachers are enduring this climate, which is a very difficult way to actually persevere over the next several years. Over the past several years, they've been doing this. And we need to demand, and we are demanding, that's why you're here right now, for Albany to consider a different way of educating our child. And not only your child, but my children and all of our children. It's not to just focus on math scores. ELA and math is just, you know, it's like a Trivial Pursuit game piece, right? You know, you get 2 wedges, you're all excited. But for some reason, it seems like the state focuses on 2 wedges as opposed to the other wedges that we need to consider the whole child. So let me talk about some facts that are out there right now. And there are a lot of facts, and some of you may think they're opinions, and that's okay. You'd be wrong because they're facts. So let me share them. The State Education Department in New York State has had 4 commissioners of education over the past 8 years. Think about that. That's worse than the Cleveland Browns having 6 coaches in 8 years. That is bad. Even though the Browns are bad, that's a football team. When we're talking about educating our children, to have that many commissioners in one short period of time, to have that instability in leadership is so significant, I can't even quantify that right now. Our last commissioner, John King, my estimation was one of the worst due to his vision and the promotion of the Regents' reform agenda. And now to think that he has more influence not only over the children and the educators and the parents in this great state of New York, but now it's across the nation, makes me worried. John King only taught for 3 years in a private school and then in a charter school, and he was never a principal. Yet he makes decisions for all public schools. And again, not just in this great state of New York, but across this nation. John King met Chancellor Tisch in one of his doctoral classes at Columbia. It's like a little Trivial Pursuit game. I'm kind of, it's like a little Snapple cap. I'm giving you some little tidbits of information, but you need to know this because you're starting from where this began to where we are right now. So think about this. Met her in one of his doctoral classes in 2009. And just a few months later was appointed deputy commissioner. And then 2 years later, commissioner. And now look where he is right now. Like that. Over the past 3 years, we have seen significant, and I mean significant with a capital S, changes on the Board of Regents. You know, it's interesting because if you go back to a couple of years ago, and I really mean this, I bet you most parents, I would even bet most educators and administrators probably couldn't name one regent. And they probably couldn't even name who the commissioner was. And now it's like, you know, It's like the Kardashians. Everybody knows who they are. Everybody knows who they are, and everybody's following what they're doing. It's amazing. That's probably one of the good things, is because now we are more educated and more informed as far as what's going on. New York had very sound standards before the Common Core standards came about. They certainly needed to be augmented, and some other standards still need to be augmented, but they were sound. They weren't broken, they weren't horrible. They needed to be, again, recrafted in some way. But now that the Common Core standards are here, what I find very interesting is that they have never been proven to increase academic achievement and or performance. They were never beta tested, they were never anything. And so there's no research to say that if you do X, Y will take place. It's never happened before. The Common Core standards, as far as I'm concerned, and again I'm saying this is a fact, and I tell you right now, they wouldn't be rewriting them right now if it wasn't. They are developmentally inappropriate, especially if you look at for primary school children. It's actually in some cases criminal as far as what the kids are being subjected to. So up until a few months ago, for the most part, parents and teachers, you go back in the day, so when I was teaching in the 90s, we had the 4th grade assessment, right? Then you had the 8th grade assessment, and then you had the Regents, right? It was really not that big of a deal. No outcry, no cries of outrage, no storming the Bastille, right? It was 4th grade predicts 8th grade, 8th grade hopefully would predict how we would fare on the Regents exam. It's not even close now. Now it is totally, totally different. And now we have, as of last year, over 200,000 students opting out in New York State for grades 3 through 8 in ELA and math. With, you never know what's going to happen this year. My prediction is it'll be more than what we had last year, which is why I'm so thankful that you're here right now. New York, as you know, has been a leader, and it really has been a beacon for many other states, for many other parents, many other educators, as far as what's happening here with this movement, and it needs to continue. This is a big one. I'm going to read it twice, because I'm going to say it twice, because I hope this lands on you and it resonates with you. If there's anything that I'm saying right now, I hope this is the one thing that you remember. Just because a parent or an educator supports opting out their children of a state assessment doesn't mean they don't believe in higher standards. Does that make sense? If you opt your child out, it doesn't mean that you don't want something better for your kids. That's not the case at all. In fact, it's really the opposite. The next few months will determine the next 20 years of public education in the state of New York. If you think about what's going to happen over the next several months, this is historic. It's like you're in this point of time, it's like you read this in the history books and you're like, I wonder what it was like when that was happening. Well, it's happening right now. And you need to be aware of it, you need to get the word out, and people need to understand that this is the block of time that you have to deal with to make a difference in whatever way that you can that's humanly possible. So, in case you didn't know this, by November of 2016, and by the way, that's a few months from now, okay, the Regents will consider new standards. They'll consider them. Now, I don't know about you, but to think that we may have a whole new set of standards in just a few months makes my skin crawl. Because if it's done the right way, it takes a little more than a few months. If you're going to build a house, sometimes it takes more than a year or two. In case of my house, it takes much more than that. The problem is it's being rushed, and it's, in some ways, I think it's already being designed, and we're going to get something that's rebranded. And I don't know about you, but I can't stand the thought of that ever happening right now. You should also know that the curricula that they are revising, the professional development that State Ed is talking about, the assessments will be ready to rock and roll by 2018, 2019. So if you don't know what that timeline looks like, you need to acquaint yourself with that, because they are promoting it and they're saying this is what's happening, good, bad, or indifferent. So here are my thoughts about what's happening with some of the people in Albany. And in some ways, we all have these filters, and you know when you're about to say something and that little voice goes off and says, I don't know if you should say that. So, but every 3 seconds that voice is going off in my mind right now, especially because I know it's being recorded. But I'm taking the filter off tonight because I think it's important that you hear, as Dr. Phil would say, the real deal. Because at some point we really need to look in the mirror. The governor and the commissioner have stated over and over again that you, as parents, have the right to opt your children out. You have heard over and over again that the state assessments won't count for your kids. Think about those two different edges right there. And now, this great idea where the state assessments are on time. Can't say anything about that except for the fact that's nuts. That's nuts. I just can't believe it. And the question is, why would any child, why would any parent allow their child to take a test that doesn't count, that's untimed, and in many ways is still not congruent with what's best for kids? So here's what I tell my parents when they come and approach me as a parent. I'm not having my children take the test. My children. So I have 5. My 7-month-old or 8-month-old can't take a test, but my others can. So, and if they ask me why, I explain why. Many of the reasons why is what I just explained right now. Parents in my school district, if they choose to opt out, I honor that fact and I honor that right, because as parents, you know what's best for your children, and we totally respect that. So when we talk about the governor, when we talk about the commissioner, when we talk about not all of the regions, but some of the regions, I believe their core values are not aligned as far as what's best for kids. And I'll talk about what that means in a minute, because I want to talk about the whole child, not just the 20% that the state only cares about. So before I do that, and I think Bonnie would agree with me on this. So as you know, I have a child who has Down syndrome. Now she's young, she's 3, and she's the light of my life. And there's something called the alternate assessment. Not all classified or special ed students would take a test such as this, but when I reviewed, when one of my teachers actually came to me and said, Mike, I don't think this is best for kids, and she felt comfortable enough to tell me, which I am very thankful for, and she explained why, and I looked at this in detail, which is the dynamic learning maps. I encourage parents who have children with special needs, they have the ability to opt out too if they see fit for their children who take the alternate assessment. And I am totally okay with that, because as parents, whether they are in general ed or in special ed, I don't care what ed they're in, parents have the right to do that, because now even this assessment is now aligned with Common Core standards. And that to me is clinically insane. Not to get Bonnie started, because I don't want to do that.
Really? I'm going to jump for a second.
You see Bonnie's in the 3-point stance right now. So I went on a little trip today. I went to New York City today with some of my colleagues in my school district. And we had some teachers and directors go to one of the consortium schools. And it's really called the New York Performance Standards Consortium. And it's a host of high schools that have been working since, I want to say, 1997, 1998, working with kids. Now think of this. Now first of all, think in this context. This is the alternative for some of our kids. It's not what's best for all kids. And the alternative should be for everyone. And so, in essence, when I was in their classrooms today, and I'm still recovering from it because it was like a Socratic seminar in this big circle with 15, 16 kids, and there were 2 teachers there. And it was all inquiry-based. And instead of taking a paper and pencil quiz or test in the end, it was all oral. And in the end, when you look at this type of schooling for their children who were in this consortium, they only have to take one Regents exam. They don't have to take all the other Regents exams that are administered by New York State. They have this agreement with the Regents way back when that in their mind, this was what's best for kids. You have teachers who are creating their own classes, who are designing their own curricula, who are coming up with ways for students to show in their own way in real time what they can do. Could you imagine that? And the Regents said yes to this. But if Patchogue-Medford or if Comstock or if other school districts want to become a part of this, the Regents say, no, you can't. And so the narrative for that needs to change. And the only way that narrative changes is if it gets out there for everyone to understand it. I strongly encourage, I have some material here if you would like to know more about it. It was, it's like, I think everybody has maybe 3 or 4 epiphanies in their life, right? Whether it's personal or professional. I've had 2 professional, this was my 3rd, which is why I'm probably so exhausted right now. I was so taken aback by the energy and the connectedness of the staff and the students, and I talked to a few students for about a half hour today, and I thought I was talking to, someone who was 30, who's been around the block for a while, who really knows what they want. And I was just totally blown away by what they can do, because you know what they do? They harvest the talents of their kids, and they're not handcuffed by regulations that are devised by people who have no idea what they're doing. It was amazing. So let me end with this, because I know I've been going on for about a half hour or so. We need to go back to a holistic way of educating our children. We need to focus on the whole child, and that means the social, emotional, and the academic. If this was put into a formula, not a math formula, but let's just say it was, you need social and emotional growth, and then the byproduct of that will be performance. If social emotional is out of whack, we're going to see really a deflation of academic performance. We're so focused on this, we're not paying enough attention to this. That's the problem that needs to be solved right now, and I don't see that being talked about by anybody up in Albany. We need more recess for kids. That is, hands down, that's what we're doing in Pat-Med. I strongly encourage other parents to start yapping about that too. I'm not saying Finland is the end-all and be-all, but there are some things that we can learn from other systems, whether it's in Finland or in other countries that are high-performing. Every 45 minutes to an hour, kids get 10 to 15 minutes, regardless of what they're doing. Because you know what it does? It recalibrates you. I know I need to be recalibrated at least every 25 minutes. I can only imagine what children need. Recess is about freeing the soul, freeing the mind, and then having them come back and recalibrating. We need more play, especially for our kindergarten and first grade classrooms. For some godforsaken reason, that pendulum has swung so far this way. The fact that we go into kindergarten and first grade classrooms and we don't see these kids playing, and by the way, playing is the highest form of learning. There is no doubt about it. It is stripped away, and it's all because I truly believe of this region's reform agenda. Using yoga, meditation, I don't care, any other way to ground someone, we need to give kids enough tools in their tool belt, figuratively, not literally, to really help themselves get centered. It's very, very important. These are one of the tools that they need. We all need to be successful in life. Yet it's we don't talk about it, we don't help them, and we need to start doing that. And then finally, it's my biggest push right now is swinging that pendulum back to authentic assessments. It has to happen. So let me end with a quote by Ken Robinson. Actually, before I do that, let me say, schools will not be penalized financially by the U.S. Department of Education or the State Education Department in New York. You hear, if opt-outs are really, really high, title funds will be withheld. I'm going to tell you right now, there's no way that's happening. And I have no problem saying that. I'll back that up. Listen, my district has a lot to lose. A lot to lose because we receive a lot in title funds. Some other districts that you may represent right now, maybe you're not as worried. I just don't see it happening, especially in an election year. It definitely won't happen in an election year. There's no doubt about it. But let me end with this. If you think of it, the whole system of public education, and I'm going to insert in New York, is a protracted process of college entrance. And the consequence is that many highly talented, brilliant, creative people think they're not. Because the thing they were good at in school wasn't valued or was actually stigmatized. That is the problem with our education system right now, ever since the Regents' reform agenda came about. And collectively, all of us together need to bring that pendulum back. And I'm hoping some of the things that I said tonight resonated with you, and I thank you very much for allowing me to be here tonight. Thank you.
Don't you ever ask them why, if they told you you would cry. So just look at them and sigh.